Have you ever felt completely surrounded, just totally misunderstood, or maybe just plain weary from the world? Well, today we're going to dive into an ancient song that, believe it or not, speaks with incredible power right into our modern struggles. We're breaking down Psalm 120, a song for the Pilgrim's journey.
Hey, before we get started, we just want to give a quick shout out and say that this devotional is brought to you by our friends at the UNFIJ in Jesus team. All right, so here's the path we're going to walk together. We're going to treat this just like a pilgrimage. We'll start with what it means to be a song for the journey. Then we'll hear the cry from distress and see what God has to say about lies. We'll touch on that feeling of being a stranger in this world and what happens when your desire for peace is rejected. And finally, we'll talk about how you can apply all this to your own steps on the path.
You know, every journey has to start somewhere. And for us to really get what's happening in Psalm 120, we first need to understand the road these pilgrims are on and why they were singing this song in the first place.
Now this is so cool. The psalm has a title, A Song of Ascent. So what does that mean? Think of it like ancient road trip music. Hebrew pilgrims would sing these songs, there are 15 of them in total, as they traveled uphill, as they ascended to Jerusalem for the big yearly feasts. And here's what's so relatable. Just like our own walks with God, these songs often kick off from a really low place, a place of trouble, with the singer looking up, looking toward God for help.
And that is exactly where our pilgrim starts his song. He's not on a mountaintop. He's in a valley of pain, and he is crying out for help.
The psalmist starts with this incredible declaration of faith. But notice the tense he uses. He's not just saying, I hope God will hear me. No, he's looking back and saying God has heard him before. He's building his prayer for today on the solid foundation of God's faithfulness in the past.
So let's just break this down for a second. That word distress, it's not just a bad mood. It's the feeling of being trapped, like the walls are closing in. And his response? He didn't just whisper a polite prayer. He cried out, a desperate, wholehearted appeal. And the beautiful result? He heard me. This is such a powerful pattern for us. Remembering how God has come through before, like it says in Psalm 34:6, gives us the fuel and the faith to face what's in front of us right now.
Okay, so he's laid this foundation of faith, remembering God can and does save him. But what's actually causing all this distress? Well, now he tells us. And it's a battle that probably feels very familiar to a lot of us, a battle of words.
Listen to his prayer, deliver my soul. This shows you how serious this is. Slander, gossip, lies. To him, this isn't some minor annoyance. It's an attack on his very being, on his character, on his soul. And he knows he can't win this fight on his own, so he hands it over to the only one who can truly bring deliverance, God himself.
And this is why his prayer has so much weight. He is literally aligning his request with the very character of God. I mean, Proverbs 12:22 could not be clearer. God hates lies. They're an abomination to him. So when we pray against slander, we're not just asking for personal relief, we're actually asking for God's justice and his truth to win the day.
So then he asks this sort of rhetorical question, right? What do you even do with a deceitful, destructive tongue? What's the right punishment? And the answer he gives is, wow. It is just packed with this incredibly intense imagery of God's judgment.
Just look at this breakdown. The judgment comes in two parts. First, you have sharp arrows of the mighty. This paints a picture of a punishment that is swift, it's perfectly aimed, and it's inescapable. And then you have coals of juniper. Now, juniper wood was famous for burning incredibly hot and for a really, really long time. This signifies a judgment that's not only piercingly intense, but also endures. It's a sobering thought, for sure, but it's also a deep comfort if you've ever been wounded by words. It's a reminder that God's justice is both certain and severe.
Now, the psalm kind of zooms out. It shifts from that specific attack to this broader feeling of just not belonging. The psalmist feels completely and utterly alone, like a foreigner in a hostile land.
Now, he wasn't literally living in these places. To an Israelite, Meshech and Kedar were way out there. They represented the most remote, uncivilized, and godless places you could imagine. He's using them as metaphors. He's saying, I feel like an exile. I feel like I'm surrounded by a culture that is totally alien to everything I believe in.
And man, that feeling of spiritual loneliness, that's something I think every believer can relate to at some point. The Apostle Peter even calls us strangers and pilgrims in this world in 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. So here's the takeaway. If you ever feel like you just don't quite fit in with the world around you, don't despair. That feeling isn't a sign that something's wrong with you.
Actually, it's a good sign. It's a sign that your heart is set on where it truly belongs, your heavenly home.
And all of this leads us to the psalm's really frustrating climax. It's this painful clash between a heart that desperately wants peace and a world that seems to just love war. You can just hear the exhaustion in his voice, can't you? My soul hath long dwelt. This isn't a new problem for him. It's this chronic soul-crushing struggle. He's living among people who hate peace, who seem to thrive on conflict. And here's the heartbreaking dilemma. He says, I am for peace, but the second he opens his mouth to speak it, they take it as a signal to attack.
This really gets to the heart of the conflict, doesn't it? On one side, the pilgrim's heart, which says, I am for peace. On the other, the world's response, they are for war. You know, the Apostle Paul got this. In Romans 12:18, he wrote, If it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. And that little phrase, if it be possible, that's everything. It's the Bible acknowledging that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, peace just isn't going to happen because the other side is committed to conflict.
So, we've walked this path with the pilgrim. We've heard his song of distress. The big question left for us is, what does this mean for our journey? How do we take these ancient words and let them shape our lives today?
All right, let's get practical. Here are 5 steps we can take right from the pages of Psalm 120. Number 1, remember. Just like the psalmist, start your prayer by looking back at God's faithfulness. Number 2, pray. When you get hit with hurtful words, take that hurt to God first, before you react. 3, guard. Guard your own words, because we've just seen how powerful they are. 4, embrace. It's okay that you don't fit in. Embrace your identity as a stranger and pilgrim. And finally, number 5, persist. Keep on being a peacemaker, even when it's thrown back in your face, and trust God with the results.
As we wrap things up, we just want to say thank you one more time to the You Need Faith in Jesus team for making this devotional possible.
And that leaves us with one final thought to carry with us. This psalm is a song for a journey, a pilgrimage. So the question for you is this: on your own pilgrimage, right where you are today, what is your next step of faith?